Everyone. So I decided to do my career research project on art conservation. I know that we were thinking mental health, but this is something that I've always been interested in. And I just decided to take the time and do some research on something that I found fun and interesting, and a little bit of a departure from everything else we're studying right now. So, as you see on this first slide, um, what is commonly known as art conservation is kind of the restoring of paintings. You can see from this image that I have on the first slide a painting from the 19th century that has been restored by a conservator named Stephen Arasoti. And however, art conservation isn't just restoring and maintaining paintings, but any kind of historical artifacts from lots of different mediums. So on our second slide, what is art conservation? Most people probably know what that is, but it's basically a blending of science and art and history. Using scientific processes and knowledge of history and artistic skill to preserve works of art, to preserve cultural heritage, and to restore and repair damage to those artifacts that still communicate important things to us today. Art conservators commonly work in independent firms and in museums. Some are even self-employed. How to become an art conservator? Well, most art conservators are hired based on a master's level education. In order to be admitted into a master's degree program, you would need some background in your undergraduate degree in art history and chemistry. Those are the two things that would set one up well for a master's degree in historic preservation, which is the master's program that is commonly used for teaching all the different specialties of art conservation. The colleges closest to us that have these programs would be the College of Charleston, Clemson, and SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. Specialty areas, most people that go into this field of work choose a specialty. So they'll choose a specialty of material, medium, meaning they might work with oil paintings, or they might work with wood or metal or textiles. They may choose a time period that they specialize in, or a geographical location. So, for example, one art conservator may specialize in European oil paintings during the Middle Ages. Skills and abilities. So, interestingly, to be an art conservator, you have to enjoy independent work because you spend a lot of hours on your own working with tangible objects, but you often work as part of a larger team. And so both of those skills are necessary. You need organizational skills, and you need to be methodical in order to follow the detailed instructions in the process of repairing works of art. And also, it's important to have some research skills and to enjoy investigating, as you'll often have a work of art where you just kind of want to dive into learning more about how that work of art came to be, what it meant, what was being communicated, the history behind it, the materials that were used during that time period in that location, and how they were made. Because that will all come into play in the restoration process. Communication and documentation are, of course, important. The values that one would need to have in order to work well in this field would be art, history, science, culture, and ideas. And the Holland interest codes that would specifically work well in this field would be investigative, artistic, and realistic. Prospective jobs. So I did a search on the internet, and the average salary of an art conservator is $50,000 per year, or $23 per hour. That depending on where you're working and what part of the country, that can go far above that or even below that. So according to raiseme.com, art conservation jobs will increase by 13% by the year 2026, which is above average growth. It's a higher rate of growth than other job markets. Interestingly, I'm not exactly sure why. There's no license required, but there are certifications in specialty areas that kind of help you to market your expertise when looking for a specific job. There is membership in a society called the American Institute of Conservation. They have their own code of ethics, and they provide a professional network, resources, continued education, and being a member of that institute kind of gives you some credibility and I guess professional credibility when looking for a job. It did remind me somewhat of our professional organizations in the mental health fields. Some examples of current job offers. One in Oakland, California would be Assistant Paintings Conservator of Preservation Arts. A master's degree is required, and it's full-time and pays between $60,000 and $79,000 a year. In Irmo, South Carolina, there's currently a job for an art handler for Carolina Conservation Company. You only need a bachelor's degree. It is full-time. However, it pays $16 to $20 per hour, but you do get benefits. So it's less pay than, say, at this place in Oakland, California, but still a good paying job. I guess at the top end, I did see a job at the Smithsonian right now, and it pays upwards of $200,000, which I would imagine would be the highest level of work in this field. Finally, as we think of what it would mean and for a Christian to work in this field, how to balance work and life, I would say that this field offers a lot of flexibility. And so a person who works in art conservation could balance work and life pretty well because there's a lot of opportunities to work in areas that suit your needs and your personality best. You can, like I said, work at a highly trafficked museum, or you can be self-employed and just work on private collections. So it provides a lot of flexibility. Interestingly, I would say that as a Christian working in the art conservation field, it would be very gratifying in just having that sense of purpose behind glorifying God with your work, because you'd be preserving the communication of ideas about important things that have been communicated about for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I write, truths from the gospel are often communicated in the human expression of natural beauty, whether it's on canvas or specific objects, or it's in writing. They hold profound meaning, and it's a way that people can communicate outside of time almost. I have two examples. So this painting that you see at the right is a painting called Behold the Man by Domenico Fetti. I think that's the way you say his name. But this painting actually was very instrumental in the life of a man named Count von Zinzendorf, who some people may know, but he is a major fixture in the Protestant Reformation, and specifically the Moravian Church. When he was a young man in Germany, he went to an art museum and gazed at this painting and felt almost like he had a mystical experience and a spiritual awakening, such that he committed his life to Christian service right there. And he went on to house the Moravian church on some of his land and support them as they began to be the first Protestant church to send out missionaries. So It's often said that William Carey is the father of modern missions, but he actually credits Count von Zinzendorf with that role and refers in his journals to the Moravian Church because they, under his influence, ended up sending out hundreds of missionaries all over the world. So very interesting that for him, that service started with gazing at this specific painting. Also, there is a hymn writer named Frances Havergal, and she wrote a couple of hymns after looking at this same painting, and said that this painting moved her so much that the hymns she wrote were a result of that. At the bottom of this painting, you'll see some wording, and it's translated as, "This I have done for you, now what will you do for me?" And I mention that because I think that that phrase was instrumental in both Count von Zinzendorf and Frances Havergal's experience. So that's just one example of how art can be a powerful communicator of the gospel and instrumental in people's lives, and would be very gratifying to um, work with. So here are my references if you're interested, and thanks for listening.